What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I want to talk about the future. Specifically, I want to talk about Microsoft's future, and we'll see how that goes. Now, of course, I want to get this out there just before we get the video started. Despite what many people have called me, no, I am not a Microsoft fanboy. Hell, for that purpose, I've been called a Microsoft fanboy, I've been called a Nintendo fanboy, I've been called a Sony fanboy, I've been called a PC elitist. So, I mean, I don't know, people are just weird. But anyway, back to the point here. I obviously play on PC as my primary platform, but I own everything else because as a gamer, I don't want to deny myself an experience that I find interesting, that I find good to play, or that I find appealing just because it's on a certain piece of hardware. If it's exclusive to that platform or it runs best on a certain platform, I will get it on that platform because I want the best experience of whatever game that I want to play. Now, so in this video, I want to look at Microsoft's future because Microsoft haven't been in the best place for the last few years, at least our Xbox gaming division, and what could potentially happen in the future. Now, before I get on to all that, I'm going to run over a brief history lesson when it comes to Microsoft. So back in 2001, Microsoft first entered the console market with the OG Xbox 180. Back then it was just called the Xbox, but I call it the OG Xbox 180 at this point just because. Whatever name it goes by, you know the one, the big black box with the little green trim on it. We all know what it is. And Microsoft had a pretty good entry into the 6th console generation because their first ever home console debuted at 2nd place of 4 pieces of hardware that generation. They beat out industry veterans like Sega and industry veterans like Nintendo, who were both on a downward decline at that point. Of course, they didn't catch the monumental success of the PS2, something that's never been replicated to this day, but they did pretty well, and a lot has to be credited to the original OG Xbox 180. Some of the main things being with just how powerful the system was and the fact that it used x86 based architecture like modern consoles and PC, it allowed developers and publishers to bring over PC ports. Whereas previously, companies would have just developed a brand new exclusive game just for the consoles because even a highly cut down port was just completely unfeasible. So thanks to the Xbox, the OG Xbox 180, a lot of PC games could be cut down to maybe medium or low settings or whatever and ported over, and a lot of companies could use this to their advantage going forward. And speaking of going forward, when we jump to the 7th generation, Microsoft actually introduced the Xbox 360 and ushered in the 7th console generation. The Xbox 360, of course, being many people's lead platform, and was generally considered by the media and just kind of the mainstream image of the console itself to be the primary and winning console. Now, the funny thing about that is even though they had the image, they had the popularity, they had the brand deals with the big companies like FIFA and Call of Duty, believe it or not, the Xbox 360 actually sold the lowest amount of units of consoles that generation. While it was leading for pretty much the majority of the time against the PlayStation 3, its main competitor. Towards the end of the generation, when the next gen had just started but there still wasn't really much to play on it, a lot of people continued buying PlayStation 3s, but not Xbox 360s. So by the end of it, the PS3 had sold about 1 million or so more units than the Xbox 360. Of course, the Nintendo Wii had sold about 15 million more, but again, casual underpowered hardware wasn't really considered mainstream. Still isn't to this day, mind you. And jumping forward again to 2013 when Microsoft released the Xbox One, that's when stuff started to go sour. Ever since it was originally announced in early 2013, the Xbox One has been nothing but a series of serious missteps at this point. There was problem after problem after problem, including the underpowered hardware, costing more than the competition and essentially getting less for it. There was the whole debacle with DRM and physical games and online check-in. Funny enough, that one I feel was blown a little bit out of proportion, mainly because Sony actually did the same thing with the PS4, they just kept it on the down low, which is why if you bought a PS4 on launch, you couldn't play the games unless you updated it to remove that. But anyway, the damage was done from Microsoft, and ever since then, it hasn't got any better. Multi-platform games would look and or run better on, say, the PS4. PS4 also had more support than the Xbox One, and Microsoft's sales numbers reflect this. As it stands right now, just under 100 million PS4s have been sold. It's roughly about 96 to 98 million units, and Microsoft haven't published Xbox One sales numbers in the longest of times. However, we can deduce a rough average of sales numbers based on the order they have put into AMD, because Microsoft have ordered 38 million units of their Silicon processors, which cover everything from the Xbox One, Xbox One S, discless Xbox One, and Xbox One X. So no matter what, they have not sold over 38 million units, otherwise they would have bought more to produce more. And it's estimated to have sold somewhere between 34 to 36 million units. Now, because Microsoft has actually been ruffle-stomped that badly this generation, Microsoft have actually come up with a bunch of incentives to try and win consumers back. Many of them aren't great if you ask me. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. With the likes of, say, Game Pass being one of the lesser received ones in my opinion. But one of the big problems is such low quality games. First party games, that is. If you compare the last couple of PS4 exclusive in-house first party developed games compared to Microsoft's ones, there's no comparison. Sony blows them away completely in both sales and critical reception. But one of the ones that has been working out as a benefit and is a good thing is that with Microsoft now expanding their Xbox as a brand outside Xbox One, they're releasing games that would previously have been console exclusive on PC at the same time, usually day and date. Gears of War 4, Halo Wars 2, Quantum Break, all the Forza games, and of course, upcoming Master Chief Collection coming to not only Xbox Windows 10 Store, but more importantly, Steam as well. Now, taking all of that into consideration, you have to look at the main point I wanted to make in this video that I've kind of drawn out to right now. Are Microsoft one large flop away from going third party? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's look back to Sega and the Dreamcast. After the Sega Dreamcast flopped, they announced that they would be making no more proper console hardware and they would be making games as a third party for any platform that will take them. Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, PC, whoever it is. They will just make games, just make software for everyone. And this could potentially happen to Microsoft, because at the end of the day, Microsoft is a business. If the Xbox One brand, be it the console sales or the licensing sales to do with discs and whatnot, as well as digital purchases and subscriptions, if that doesn't make enough money, or if that doesn't even make them profit at all, they are just going to discontinue the Xbox One brand. Now, who knows if that's going to happen in this generation? Who knows if it's going to happen in the next generation? But I believe if the Microsoft console, the Microsoft Xbox 2.4, when we see it in 2020, I believe if this flops again and they completely get destroyed in the next generation, we might actually see Microsoft go third party. It could happen. It also could not happen. But at the end of the day, let me explain to you why I think it's a bad thing if Microsoft were to stop being a first-party hardware manufacturer and just become a third-party software developer. Best example I can give you is right now, look at the PS4. It's completely destroying the Xbox One in sales. And Microsoft have tried to respond to this by creating new initiatives, new incentives to buy Xbox or use the Xbox. Whereas Sony have done basically nothing. The closest they've done, which took them literal years after people have been begging for it forever, is the ability to change your name. And even then, they've kind of messed it up because you can still possibly lose all your progress, all your licenses, all your games, all your everything on your account. But basically, Sony have done nothing because there's no incentive for them to do so. I guarantee you, if Sony still had 96 million units, but Microsoft had 94 or 95 million units, Sony would be coming up with all sorts of operations, all sorts of incentives, all sorts of initiatives just to keep them competitive and keep them ahead. The biggest thing I've always said is competition breeds innovation. If there's no competition for Sony via Microsoft going away, Lord knows Nintendo aren't even competition for them, because there's a whole other basically obsolete market in modern gaming. Sony are just going to skate by and do the bare minimum. Sure, they'll give you all the quality games, which at the end of the day is basically what you want from a console, but they're just going to skate by with the bare minimum. Because your options are basically shut up and take it, or fuck off and do nothing. It's their way or the highway. So for that reason, Microsoft, if they were to go third party and just become a development studio for everyone, I don't think that would be a good idea or a good outcome in the long run. Sure, some people might get to play Halo on other platforms and whatnot. It doesn't bother me. Like I said, I'll play whatever, wherever, as long as it's the best version of the game. Which, of course, will always be PC in third party situations. But you see my point. Let's hope that Microsoft can turn a lot of it around and fix a lot of the mistakes that were made with the Xbox 2.4. Who knows, maybe they'll go even bigger and harder on the hardware front. Maybe they'll go for something even more powerful than the PS5 and sell it cheaper than the PS5 just to get it into people's homes. Take a big loss like that at the start. Microsoft have the cash to just go, we can do whatever we want. But of course, it's about the long game, it's the long term. People might be kind of turned off as well and hesitant because of the Xbox One. The same thing happened with Nintendo and the Switch because of the Wii U. So where do you sit on the whole side of it? Do you think Microsoft should already just go first party so you can get Halo on your PS4? Would you be happy letting Sony skate by with the bare minimum and basically no improvements every so often, no incentive to do anything to give you more as a consumer? Or do you think Microsoft should stick around? Just to try to light a fire under Sony's arse if they can finally pull it back and catch up. Anyway, let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or a live stream or whatever is a whole other story, but hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.